A very good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Anybody who is for the first time here? Good morning, Pradeep. Good morning, Harun. Good morning, Neha. Good morning, Nikhil, Vikas, Tanya, Payal. So today's topic is very interesting. It's about emotional design. So we often talk about this, like the design should emotionally connect with the users or the participants, and we should create something that is very emotional. So we have seen that many a times. So basically, whenever this brand or the agencies work on different brands, what they do is they use these emotions to connect with the people. Okay, when you are able to connect people by using the right emotions, right, there are different things. I'll talk about those. So basically, when you are able to connect, then what happens? There is a meaningful connection that gets established between the brand and the consumer or the user, and that is what makes the brand successful. In this case, brand could be any digital product, it could be any brand as such, and then it really helps. Why? Because it creates a positive emotion and helps create that right relationship. So today I'll talk about what is emotional design. And before talking about emotional design, I'll also talk about like what is emotions, and emotions generate feelings, and then how we can use these emotion and the relationship with feeling to create products that is really meaningful. And by understanding this, you can create successful products. Okay, before I continue, so this is me. I'm Manprit Kalsi. I'm a design consultant, a UX strategist. I work with large corporate startups, design studios, then UX agencies, tech companies. I've worked with a lot of these kind of companies and corporates, got good experience in designing, whether it's like customer experience or user experience services. And these are the different platforms where you can follow me. So that's LinkedIn. You can search me by Manprit Kalsi. That's YouTube and LinkedIn, and the other places with the name of Kalsify. So these are the different places where you can find me. Before I continue, so these are few books that I recommend everybody to read. This is related to the topic emotional design. And if you want to learn more about emotional design after this session of the workshop, you can read these books. These are really interesting books, and you'll get to know a lot of things by reading these books. And this will help you create right products. Just understanding the UX process won't help. So there are other things that also goes in creating a better product. Since we are creating products for the human, so understanding human emotions and understanding their thought process, how do they think and how do they behave, or like why do they behave in certain manner. So understanding those things is very important, and that's why these books I recommend a lot. I recommend you to read. This is at a very high level what I'll cover today. So understanding emotions, we'll understand what is real emotions, okay, and then what are the different types of emotion, and then I'll take it forward, and then I'll discuss about emotional design, how we can create designs that can emotionally connect with the users. We'll also study or I'll talk about Don Norman's 3 level of emotional design. So Don Norman is called as the father of user experience. So I'll talk about the 3 levels that he has defined, and also like how to use all the learnings to create the right designs. Whenever we talk about user experience design, what we often do is like we talk about that the design should be user-centric design. So basically, you should design the experiences for the users. But just designing experiences for the user is not enough. You need to like go beyond that and design for the emotions. So basically, design should connect emotionally with the users. If you're not able to emotionally connect, your product will still be usable. People will come use the products, but they will not emotionally connect. And if you want to really be very successful, then you need to emotionally connect with the users. Before I continue, so this is the definition of emotion. So what is emotion? A conscious mental reaction. So basically, you are reacting to certain event, and that is happening consciously. So basically, there's some physical event, there's some emotional event, there's something happening, but you use your brain. That is the rational thinking. You use that to react to that. Okay. So we'll study in detail about what is emotions and emotional design, but this is the definition of emotion. So basically, a conscious mental reaction. It could be like joy, anger, fear, subjectively experienced as a strong feeling, usually directed towards a specific object. So there's an object that triggers certain kind of behavior, and because of that, certain emotions are generated. Okay. The emotions or the results could be in the form of the physiological and the biological changes. Okay. And because of that, what happens? There is a change in the feeling in the body. Some feelings are created or generated in the body. Overall thing that's happening, or the process that's happening, is all conscious. So that is dictionary definition of emotion. When we talk about emotion, we always relate that to the feeling. So like basically we try to use that as together, like interchangeably. Like sometimes we use emotion or feelings, but if we talk about through the psychological point or the biological point, it's different. So basically, emotions is basically what happens outside the body, and feelings is basically something that happens inside the body. And I'll talk more about this. So basically, as a human being, we get these emotions or different kinds of emotions every day. Like whether we are, talking to someone, watching a movie, or we go out on a date or on a picnic, watching movies. So whatever activity we are performing, we are in one way or the other experiencing some kind of emotion, which in turn is making us feel something, right? So that is basically emotions. So emotions and feelings are different. So we need to understand that and how it is different. So it is this way. So basically, emotion is the chemical released in the brain in response to some trigger. And this trigger is happening where? This trigger happens outside the body. Okay. So basically, suppose I met a friend after 3 years. So what will happen? My body will respond in certain manner. And because of that, what will happen is my brain will trigger some chemicals, and that will create certain kind of emotions. So that is basically the trigger is outside and the emotion is generated. But what happens after that? After that, you feel very happy after meeting him. So that the end result is the feeling. So emotion is kind of like a middle man between the trigger and the feeling. So that's why like understanding emotion is very important, because that will really help the UX designer to create the right product. This is the process how it works. So when a human being is subjected to a physical and neurological changes, certain chemicals are released in the brain, which compels human to go in a state called emotion. So what's happening? You see something physical or something that triggers something in you, and because of them, a certain chemical is released, and because of that, there's certain emotion is generated within you. Now, because of this emotion that you generated within your body, certain other kind of things happens, and that is basically the feeling. You start feeling certain kind of sensation. This is in regards to that emotion. So basically, if you saw your friend and you felt happy, because of that you will feel joyous and you will feel very, very excited and so on. Because of the emotion, end result becomes the feeling. So we need to understand that. So this is clearing the concept more. So emotion happens within the body. It's basically all the physical and stuff. It also plays a good part in the mind also, but most of the feelings happens in the mind. It doesn't take place in the physical stuff. It's basically everything happening in the brain itself. Okay, don't get confused. So even if you're not able to understand, it's fine. Emotions play out in the theater of body. So emotions plays everywhere, each part of the body emotions can play, but feelings only plays in the mind. So feelings is related to mind, and emotions is like whole body. If you have to compare these, feelings is what is basically feeling determine how to live, like how should we live and all. Emotion goes beyond that, and it says that okay, I like this, I don't like that. And that is only because of the emotions. And understanding this will help you create right product, because by understanding the emotions of the users, so you can create products that they can start liking. Okay, feelings is basically determining between right and wrong. You can judge like what is right and wrong, and here it means like what is good and bad actions, like why the end result is bad, because the actions were either good or bad. Okay, emotions matters, external world matters. So in the feelings, everything is happening inside, and is the result of the end result of the emotions. Otherwise, like emotion is always happening outside, like the trigger is outside the body. Okay, then feelings is long-term attitude, and the emotion is initial attitude. Feelings is anticipation action, and this is immediate action. So basically, anticipation is basically what? It happens because of the emotions. Okay, and feelings is permanent and emotions is temporary. This is like a very small comparison of the two. And now going forward, I'll talk more about the emotions, because that's what helps the designer design the right product. So what are the different types of emotions? Plutchik came up with this concept of wheel of emotion. So basically, he says that there are some core emotions, and by combining different core emotions, the other emotions are formed. Okay, this is a wheel that he has presented, and he is basically termed this as wheel of emotion. So basically, each emotions depends upon the other emotions and its correlation with the other sub emotions. So basically, if we talk about angry is not just one state. There are like many different states of angry. Similarly, sad is like different states: disappointed, regretful, depressed. So there are different sub states of each emotion: anxious, hurt, embarrassed, happy, right? So as a designer, as a UX designer, we need to understand like different emotions. Yes, we should understand that. But the most important thing that we need to understand is what makes the user happy. So how can you make the user happy? And this is basically relates to the emotional design. So if you are creating a product, so you should focus on this section of how to make the users happy. So basically, how you can make the users trust your product. How can you make them comfortable? How can you deliver the right content to them and make it contextual for them? How can you keep the users excited, relaxed, relieved, and confident after using your product? So once you are able to understand this and incorporate these emotional elements in your design, you can achieve really good design. And when I'm talking about emotions, we also need to understand how brain works. And that is basically human cognition. Okay, so there are two ways how the brain processes information. One is the cognitive or the cognition, and the other is the emotion. So when I talk about cognition, it's all the thinking, it's all the logical thinking that happens. So basically, if I have to buy a product, so what I'll do is I'll do a lot of comparison between different products, and then I'll decide the price, like how much warranty I'm getting, many other things, right? So that is basically all the rational thinking, logical thinking, that whether I should buy this or not, is it worth buying that price, how much warranty I'm getting, so what happens if the product goes wrong, and what is the return policy. So a lot of thinking goes in cognitive process. But in the case of the emotion, that is also called as the feeling, they are basically uncontrolled and brain doesn't think much about it. So basically, the user likes a product, he'll not think much, but he'll start using the product. That depends upon whether I'm happy at that time or like whether I like that product or not. So there are different reasons that make the user use the product. Okay, so we need to understand that cognitive is all the thinking, all the logical that happens within my brain, and the emotion is all the feeling or the emotion that controls the decision. Okay, human make decisions with emotional brain and justify them with cognitive brain. So this justifies everything. So basically, when we see certain product, so we get attracted towards it and we think of buying, or like we decide to buy. But whether we actually buy or not, that is the role or the responsibility of cognitive. And cognitive brain decides whether you should go ahead and buy or not. So in cases like your emotional feeling is above the cognitive thinking, so you will go ahead, the brain says that don't buy or don't use that product. So that's why the importance of emotion and understanding like how you can incorporate emotions in your design becomes more important. So why should we use emotions, or like what is the power of emotions? Emotions are important because it gives color to a life. It becomes meaningful for a life. So suppose you participated in a certain competition and you came first, and once you are back communicating that with your friend or exchanging with your friend that you won, and during that communication if you were not able to express your emotions, then everything will look very dull. So that's why like emotion becomes very important. So everything, whatever we do in our life, emotion enlarges it, so our emotions are engaged each and every time we interact. So basically, whatever we are doing, whether we are going to a new place, visiting a new country or a state, or like going on a vacation, meeting a new person, or we like watch movies. So whatever activity we are doing, we are in one way or the other like making use of emotions or like expressing the emotion, right? So when the users are using the product, so they are at each stage using emotions while interacting with the product. So we keep improving ourselves. So basically, so as a UX designer, it's our responsibility to understand the users. Why? Because the users or the people, they keep growing, they keep changing. And with the change comes new insights, new perspectives, and then they are also able to understand better like who they are and where they stand and like which environment or the surroundings they are working or living. So since they are changing, human beings' behaviors and patterns of lifestyle is ever changing. So we need to understand what changes is happening and how they are emotionally changing, and how that change in the emotions is affecting the other interactions in the environment. So we need to understand this, and we need to also keep in mind that since humans are a complex product, and because all the changes happens every day and they keep evolving themselves, so it's very difficult to design the right product for them. So it's very difficult to design, but yes, we can design a good product for them, having a basic understanding of human psychology and how the users behave in a different way in different situations and surroundings. And also, since different users have different personality, their nature is unique. Because of that, they generate different kind of emotions. So studying these people, studying the users, and we often do this in our design process when following the UX process. Okay, so when studying, doing the research, we try to understand the emotional part also. While studying or like creating the design, we try to make use of that emotional trigger. So basically, by triggering an emotional response in the user, we can create good user experiences and solutions. So ultimately, what's the crux here? The crux is that yes, we need to follow the UX process. We need to understand who are we building the product for, why are we building, what are we trying to solve. But along with that, we also need to think their emotional levels at different stages. When I'm talking about emotional levels, so I'm talking about the digital interaction. So basically, if this user is on the product, he's there on the website to download the product, how does that website or the mobile app communicates with the user? Is it able to emotionally connect with the user by using the right content, copy, visuals, illustrations, images, or humor at places? active voice, passive voice, the tonal quality of the content. So there are so many different things that we use. When I'm talking about this emotional design, the emotional design relates to like the digital system that we are using. If product is usable, so people will emotionally connect. Similarly, interaction, visual design, content, everything that's there on the design, on the product, in one way or the other, can impact the emotional connection and relationship between the user and the product. So we understand that each and every product needs to have an amazing user experience. Okay, so if you really want your product to stand out from the other, even if it's having the same feature than the other products, you can easily achieve that difference or make your product stand out better than the others, incorporating this emotional connect or emotional relationship with the user. And there are a few factors or few things that we need to consider, or we are supposed to like take care of when designing the product. I will talk about those things later in the next slides. What we have understood till now is that in the UX process, we follow user-centric design approach. But along with that, if we are able to also include the emotional-centric approach, so basically also understanding the emotion, so we'll be able to create magic and good designs. Most successful products are remembered for more than just great functionality and usability. Even if your product or any product has good functionality, good usability, and it's solving the purpose, still people might not be using that product much. Why? Because it lacks in some way or the other that emotional connect. So emotional connect between the product and the user is very important. As I mentioned earlier, by looking at the different subsets of happy emotion, we can understand what can we bring to create better experiences, and we can use those sub emotions at different places, like by adding humor or by adding like different right colors or small illustrations, animations. We can use those to bring happiness, joy, and satisfaction, confidence on the product, and the user can experience that. Choice user makes, the action they take, and the perceptions they have, all are influenced by emotion they are experiencing. So basically everything, whatever they are doing, the reason why they are on the product or why they stay on a product, everything is derived from emotion. So this is basically the human-centric approach to design. We call this as design thinking process. So here we follow this process to create designs. This is a 5-stage process, and the first stage is basically empathize. So in this stage, what we try to do is we try to understand the problem. What is the problem and why we are solving that problem, and then also try to understand who are the users. By understanding who the users are, we are able to create better products. And why we are able to create products? Because we can understand where they live, how they use the product, how many hours do they use the product, and what is their skill set, what is the technology level of expertise that they have, what is the educational qualification. So there are so many different things we learn during empathize phase or when doing a research. Right. So in this research part, we also should understand the emotional angles or the emotions that they have like when they are using the product or like when they want to use the product. Okay. And also like we should understand that emotion design is a fluid part of the entire design thinking process. So fluid means to say it's not a linear process. So basically it's not that it will come on the second stage, third stage, or fourth stage, or fifth stage. No, it doesn't happen that way. So basically there are a lot of things that goes during the process, and there is like various ups and lows when experiencing a product. So that's why it's a fluid. So basically the journey could be like from stage 2 to stage 3, stage 3 to stage 1. So basically as a UX designer, we can understand more about the user when we are ideating or when we are prototyping. So this is a continuous experience or a fluid part of the entire design thinking process. That's why understanding users is very important in any UX process. So as I talked earlier, how can design evoke positive and memorable experience? If you really want to understand after this session, if you want to read and become a better UX designer, then you should read these 2 books. The first one is Emotional Design by Don Norman. So he talks about like how the small objects or the objects of a daily life can affect the emotion, and how people, even if the product is not useful, they still buy it because it emotionally connects with them. And second is the book by Aaron Walter. So basically he says that so there are like a lot of psychological laws. We can use those laws to create the right product and the right experiences. Okay, so Don Norman says that as per Don Norman's definition, emotional design strives to create products that elicit appropriate emotions in order to create a positive experience for the user. So basically each product is created to generate certain kind of emotion in the user, and that in turn is made to generate certain kind of experience. So if you're able to create emotions that are positive, that is related to happiness and satisfaction, then your product will have better experience. So that is what Norman says. And similarly, Aaron Walters says that emotional design uses what? Psychology, that's human psychology, and craftsmanship, that is basically the artistic skill of how, or the UX skills of how to design the product, how to use the colors or the different elements, images, illustrations to create the design. So basically, psychology and craftsmanship to create an experience that makes them feels like there's a person. Basically, they are not talking to a machine or they're not using a machine. There's a person whom with they're attracting. So that is his thought, and he said that we are able to achieve or create better product by incorporating emotions. Till now, we have understood what are different emotions, then also like different theories or the concepts or the definition by Don Norman and Aaron. But what are the factors that define the emotions? So the factors are, so basically there are three factors. One is the visceral, the other is the behavioral, and the third is the reflective. So let's understand this in depth. And these are basically called as Don Norman's 3 level of emotional design. So Don Norman's 3 level of emotional design states that there are 3 different levels of emotional design, and if we are able to use that in a design, in a creation of the product or the process, so we will be able to create right product. Okay, let's start with the first one. So this is the visceral design. That's the first level or the level at the base. So, and it relates to the attractiveness, the aesthetics. So this is basically the very upper layer of any product. So this is related to the design, the user interface, the colors, the images used in the design, the layout of the design, the typography of the design. So everything that makes the product looks good. So those are basically called as visceral layer of design or visceral design. So this is the first impression or the affection reaction. So basically you see something, you like the product, like the design, like the color, like the shape. So that is basically the visceral design. Okay, so that's the initial impression and also the emotional feel or the feeling that you get when looking at the product. And these are basically subconscious and automatic. So basically you see the product, you like it because of XYZ reason, and it concerns itself with appearances, right? So it's all about the look and feel. It refers to the first impression of a design, both in terms of how the user perceives the product and how it makes the user feel. And it refers to the visible quality of the object. Great. So next is called as the behavioral level or behavioral design. So this talks about the usability part. So basically, so suppose I'm on the app, am I able to use the product? Easy to use? Does it have all the functionalities? And is it performing good? And am I like happy using it or I'm getting frustrated? So basically, how is the product behaving? And this is all about the usability, whether I'm able to use the product or not. And happens consciously. So basically you're using the product, you are involved in the product, and then going from one screen to another, and then either enjoying it or not enjoying it, whether it's effective or not. So this is all behavioral design. And the last but not the least is the reflective. And this is basically the personal relationship. Like suppose I like product of a company A, and later on if the company comes with a product which is not that good, still I will go and buy the product because I have a relationship with the brand. And this is basically all conscious. There's a lot of thinking that goes in. So because once you get associated with a product, think a lot. You do a lot of thinking, logical thinking happens, and approach a design, you basically see like whether this is good, not like. So basically this is a very long process. So before getting involved with a brand, so what you do is you do all your research, you do all the rational thinking. And this reflective part is all about rational thinking. Okay, so cognitive, intellectual level watches over and this is basically at the top. So basically at the bottom is what? Bottom is visceral. So basically you like the product, and behavior, what happens is the second stage, whether it's useful or not, whether you're able to use it or not, and whether it's solving some purpose or goal. And the third, and that's it at the top, is the logical. So basically once you have achieved or like once you have looked at the two, the visceral and the behavior, the reflective is basically all the thinking that goes. Should I buy this product? Should I not buy this product? What are the pros and the cons of the product? What are the benefits? What are the features? And other things associated with that. Okay, so as a UX designer, we should understand 3 layers of design. And when actually designing the product, we should just make use of this. So basically, first, the impression should be the visceral, basically attract, layout should be used, the nice colors, typography should be made use of in the design. It should be like also have like the right user experience. Now, when you have the right user experience and the right usability, and it's also like very pleasing and has right aesthetics quality. So what will happen? The brain will say like, yes, it is useful, it is usable, and it also good looking. So I think let's go and buy the product or use the product. So you should try to create a product which has got all these 3 levels of design. Okay, so we understood what makes good design. So once we are able to incorporate all the 3 layers, so your design will start becoming useful. But there are other things also. Okay, and that is basically human psychology. So you should have basic understanding of human psychology and how the brain works. And there are like a lot of books also you should read about this. I'm not covering that in this session. So we understood about the emotional design, 3 layers. There's another thing that we need to understand. So as a UX designer, we make use of this law or the pyramid, and this is called as the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I make use of it by referring it. So basically, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a model that talks about the different needs of a user. Okay, and by understanding this hierarchy, so we can use this on in relation to the real product design, and then we can understand how we can use this to create better products. So basically, every user different kind of needs. So basically, it starts with the basic need, that is the physiological needs, then the safety needs, then the love, belonging, esteem, and at the top is the self-actualization. Okay, so there the motivation is very high, and if you're able to cater to those needs, the experience will be more, because the basic needs just required for the survival, but it doesn't generate or create emotions. Like here, like the physiological needs is food, water, warmth, rest. These are the needs for the body. We'll fulfill this need just for a survival, right? Similarly, safety, similarly, belongingness, love, and this. But the self-actualization is the level where we are more happy, or like where we are more satisfied. Similarly, when we try to create a relationship and use this theory of Maslow, theory of design or need to the product, then we'll see that the physiological needs relates to the functional. So if your product is functional, if the user is able to use your product, then well and good. Apart from that, what should happen is it should be safe. So safe means it should be reliable. The product should have reliability. And then love, belongings is basically whether the product is usable or not, and so on. So basically we see that product, what you're developing or designing, should be one, functional, reliable, usable. And this is like a must feature for the product. But if you really want to create a successful product, you should meet the top pyramid or top layer of the pyramid. And that is basically your product should be pleasurable. You can design that, you can achieve that by creating or using the right creativity, right interaction, right different design elements in your design. I have like few points. I'll show you all those things later. If you're able to achieve that top part, if you're able to create something that is pleasurable, people will for sure stick to your product and will keep using your product. And that should be the ultimate goal of all UX designers. Okay, we saw this, that there are 3 levels of emotional design: visceral, behavioral, and reflective. And if you're able to like properly use this, then your design will be great. So basically you will have a great appealing design, effective design, memorable design, and pleasurable design. Okay, so understanding these 3 levels is very important. Along with that, we also should understand Peter Model's honeycomb model. So basically he says that if you really want to create a better product, so your product should be useful, it should be usable. Useful is like it should solve some purpose. Usable is basically users should be able to use the product. Desirable is basically it should be attractive, it should be good looking. Findable is basically solve some purpose. Accessible is basically access across all the platforms, everywhere, like wherever possible. And credible is like basically it should come from a good company. There should be a brand associated or a brand image associated with that product. So we understood like 3-4 different models. So if you are able to properly use these models, and if you are able to create a good level of satisfaction, so basically the top level of satisfaction, then we will create good product. Okay, so bad, neutral, and good. So each product has like different level of satisfaction. So by creating or using these different models and understanding users, we can easily create a good product. And level of satisfaction depends upon whether the product is likable, whether the user are able to understand the product, and also they are able to use the product. And every model talks about those things. 1, the product should be useful, the user should be able to connect with the product, and then it should also solve or meet the need of the user. Okay, now why design for emotion? Because emotion is also experience. So when we are using a product, if we like it, so there is certain emotions that gets developed. Because of that, we start liking the product. So emotion is experience. Since emotion is experience, and since we're talking about design, so that's why all design is emotional design in one way or the other. And if we are very emotional, then it will dominate our decision making. So basically, if we are emotional, we see a product, and then if we are able to connect to the product, we'll buy that product or use that product. Emotion communicates personality. So each emotion, so it connects with certain kind of personality, and it's able to communicate personality, and because of that, what happens? We are able to create a good relationship. So that's why emotion is very important, and we should try to provide an emotion to all the products that we create in our life as a design. How to apply this now? Like we have learned about different things, different models, but how do we apply this? The first and the most important thing is give your design a personality. It should not look like a regular design. There should be a personality associated with your design. You can achieve this in different ways. So you can use different type of images, different kind of illustrations, or different kind of copy also in the design. Okay, like MailChimp uses a monkey. So that is basically a personality of that particular product. So what is it you want to use or able to use? So it depends upon you. So if you're able to create a personality about your product or for your product, so yes, people will start relating to your product and will start making connection to your product. The second is storytelling is very important. So whenever designing, create the right flow, create the right journey for the user. And when showing that journey or the screen flows or the designs to the user, tell it in the form of a story. You can use like a lot of things, be it just the experience along with the content that will help you create a right story. Okay, so creating a story is very important. Then is on the app, try to play a game or like gamify the full experience of the user. Like you play different games on different platforms or different devices. So here what happens is like they involve the user or the gamer to the game. Similarly, when you're designing, try to use gamification and create the stickiness so that the users keep coming back to the product for using it. So gamification is important. Create design that engage users as a character. So basically, one, you gave the personality to your product, right? And secondly, you should treat the other person as a different character and use it as a human being, as a character, and then try creating a relationship between the two. It should work as a human talking to a human, or like a living creature talking to a living creature. There are different ways that you can use that. So basically in the form of copies, just by saying I can't explain, but yes, there are a lot of things that goes here. It depends upon the flow of the design, the copy of the design, or the type of the images that you're using in the sequential flow of the design. So a lot of things goes in creating this kind of engagement. Add humor in the design if possible. If your business is not very serious, and if you can add humor at places, and you can do that with the help of like small illustrations or even the copy. Okay. What else? We should always use a unique design theme. So basically your design or your product should have its own personality. And when I talk about personality, how do we achieve that? We achieve that by using our own product style guide or own product guidelines or the brand guidelines. That's why like the brands are made, and each brand has a unique guideline. So it talks about the different colors, different fonts that they can use. And when you're creating your, be it like web application or mobile app or other designs, try to use those brand guidelines and product guidelines and create the design. Okay, so that way what will happen is stand unique or like be unique from the others, and people can relate to it that okay, so this colors or this image kind of image means this product. Also, whenever possible, try using small visual clues or visual elements to stimulate or like create right emotions. Okay, again, visual elements, typography, so we can use those. So but the core is how do we stimulate, how do we do that? So this is again by small emotions, videos in between, sounds, the images, the layout of the design. Okay, color also becomes very important. So each and every brand has their own specific color, so make use of that color. When making use of the color, do make use of the contrast properly. Okay, and contrast is important because it helps organize the full design. So dark, light, lighter, white, so all those things, and also make right use of negative space to create good design. Copy is also important. Just by creating a good visual design won't help. So you need the right copy. Tone of that copy should be something that should connect with the user. So if you're talking to someone who's of the age group of like 18 to 25, then your copy will be different, and you should understand your audience, your user group, and then define the right copy. Okay, so here the copywriter or the UX copywriter plays a big role, and by using the right tonal quality, you can create a good relationship and connect with the users. So I talked about the copy. So this is the overall copy of the product, but along with that, also focus on the micro copy, like these small things like what message should come on errors or different states, empty states of the app or the screen, different labels, buttons, and so on. So basically, what should be the message? Can that message connect with the overall brand personality? So these are small things, but this really helps in connecting or creating the right emotional relationship. Put the user in control of the UI. I discussed about it, that the other person, that the person who is using should also feel like a person, and like you should get the sense that he's really controlling everything. And what will happen because of that? He will feel as if he has got the power of the app, and like he's one who is doing everything on the app. So give the user the control of the product or the UI, and wherever possible, create small interactions in the form of small animations and small gestures and so on. So that also emotionally connects with the users. As I said, for the small interactions also, what you can do is you can use small audio, video, GIF format, GIF file, GIF images, and so on. So basically, again, it's all about connecting with the user. And these are like small things, but overall, it really impacts the experience. This is also very important. As I talked about the gamification and storytelling, personalization also becomes very important. So when I talk about personalization, develop the experience or modify the experience of the users depending upon their profile, preferences, and so on. Deliver users the content, offers, or features that match their needs. So basically, personalizing their experience is very important here. And offer prizes and surprises in between, if possible, wherever you are able to give them some rewards or some points, loyalty points paid, or any other kind of thing. So try to surprise them. So if you're able to, yes, they will start liking your product. And this is also important because most of the people tend to ignore this. So whenever there are error messages or like this or the screens which rarely seen, do try to put the right creativity and then design that screen. Okay, because that also helps in making the right connection with the user. And provide feedback on every user action. So basically, this means that when a user is interacting with the product and he feeds in some information, then do give him the response and give him the feedback or the result, right? Because otherwise, he will not understand what's happening, and he will not use the product again. So always try to give feedback to the user and minimize cognitive load. Don't overload the user. Don't give a lot of content, a lot of information to the user. Just try to give less information and break your screens into multiple screens if there is a lot of information on one screen, and simplify and make clean designs. And recognition is basically people recognizes few things or understands few things. Like when you're designing, create the right kind of images, because that really helps in making connections. And I always say that whenever you're using images, always try to use images which is directly talking to the user or making direct eye contact with the user. So that really helps in establishing a connection. And that's why recognition also plays an important role. Consonance is also important here, because we as a user, or as the end user, they are used to certain kind of patterns, or they understand few things in group. So when creating the design, make use of those patterns and create designs. And that way what will happen is the user will not have to think a lot, and since they are already used to certain kind of pattern, they will start liking your product, and because of the same pattern or the past experiences, and it will help in creating the right emotional connection. Okay, so this is what it is. These are small points. These are but very important points. Understanding what are the different kinds of emotions, and what are the different sub-emotions, and how we can achieve by using small different elements in design. And by using those things and making use of the 3 levels of the emotion design, that's the visceral, behavioral, and reflective, we can achieve a big difference or create a big difference in the product and the experiences. So any designer, so once he has the understanding of what the business wants and who the users are and what are the user goals, so by putting little more effort and by understanding the emotional levels of the user, better product can be created by them. Okay, so Don Norman says that everything has a personality. Everything sends an emotional signal. Even where this was not the intention of the designer, the people who view the website infer personalities and experience emotions. So that's why the personality is very important. So whenever you're designing anything, try to create a personality of that particular product. The personality is important. Try to create that, and you can use a lot of different things to create that personality. You can use illustrations, you can use different quality of images, or copy, or icons. So there are a lot of things that you can use to create that particular personality. And once your product has a personality, people will start relating to your product and start using your product and understanding, or kind of creating a relationship with your product. Okay, so that is it. So basically, not just the user-centric design approach, but yes, emotional or emotion-centric design approach is also important. And the UX designer should have an understanding of what is emotion and how we can use that emotion connection or emotional connect with the user to create the right product. And in turn, what will happen is like they will experience the product, they will feel happy about it, and refer your product also to other people, and they will enjoy your product. Okay, so that's it for the day.